to revolve.
All right.
Revolve.
Indie Revolution Expo 2017. This is how to cast and direct voice acting for your game. This is going to be a pretty loose panel, but it's all from voice actors' perspectives. And some of you have experience, I believe, working as in casting and directing, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. Patrick, I know you work. I think you've done it before. Or am I full of shit?
Yes.
Okay.
I do that.
Okay. So if you have questions in chat, please feel free to throw them out there and we'll hop on them. And otherwise, let's get started. First of all, let me introduce everyone. We have first of all, I'm Josh. You know me.
Hi, Josh.
Hi, everybody. I've been not drinking for about a year now. No.
Oh, good job.
Most recently, I've been cast in Tether as a smaller role, along with Tamara down there, who is the main voice in Tether. Mark, who's the dev, is in chat if you want to ask him about that, and ask if we're legit.
Mark.
Hello, Mark.
I mostly do commercial and business and narration, that sort of stuff. But you can check out all that stuff online at mustardvo. Wait, I recently changed my I recently changed my website. I'll link it somewhere eventually. Anyway, next to me is Piper Faye. She is recently has voiced in Pit People. You may recognize that game. She was also in the panel yesterday for working title Keeper and the Girl. As the main
Good
voice
job.
in that. Yeah, I got it right this time. Next to her is Patrick. That's his real face, and he was in.
It's
Notably,
little do they know I'm a cartoon.
yeah, it all works out. He can voice act himself. He was most notably. I don't know if it's most notably compared to you, but notably for me was Freedom Planet. Tamara, as I said, was in Tether. Also, Ark Survival Evolved. You might recognize her from there. And Jerry is in Folktale, which is on Steam. Is that still early access, Jerry? Do you know?
Yeah, it's still early access right
Okay.
now, yeah.
And also is a radio personality. I was going to say DJ, but
Right.
excuse me.
Yeah. No disc to jockey anymore.
So anyway, first of all, when you're being cast in a game, if as someone who's making a game, what would you say is the most important aspect when you're looking for a voice actor to voice your character? Who wants to start? Piper, you volunteered, I think.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
how sad.
Okay. Well, first you kind of want to think about how big of a pool you want to try to draw from. Do you want to scout people? Do you want to use the websites where you can just put out an ad, let everyone know what's going on, stuff like that? Or do you need to be vague? How much can you, and talk to the people you're with, like how much do you need to give away? You know, sometimes they have to sign an NDA once they're hired on, you know. Just kind of talk to the people who are having you do the casting for them and just figure out what you're allowed to share, what you're not, you know. Do you want to use actual phrases from the game? Or do you want to make mock-up ones, you know, so you're not giving out too much story detail, you know, stuff like that. And I'm sure people could add more to that.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's like when you're first starting, before you even start listening to the auditions, you want to get that figured out.
You mentioned like places to post your cast or your auditions, and many of us, if not all of us, have started online. I'm not sure about you, Tamara, but I know me, Jerry, Piper, and Patrick have Newgrounds connections.
Newgrounds is my beginning.
There you go.
Yeah.
All of us have started Newgrounds, apparently.
Yeah.
And we've probably also came across things like Voice Acting Alliance or Voice Acting Club. I think the Voice Acting Alliance is no longer a thing, but Voice Acting Club is still
Right.
there.
They have died.
Newgrounds still has their own forum. Those are like free places that you can actually, even the other places like voices.com and that sort of stuff are free. Now that I think about it.
Yeah.
But
And Newgrounds used to not even have one,
right, yeah.
a forum. I had to poke them with a I had to poke them with a stick. We were actually stuck with the music and audio people.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, now that you mention it. The
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
were you at Newgrounds Day, or not Pico Day, a couple years ago?
I've never gone.
I thought you
Never
were
had
for
the
some reason.
pleasure. I know.
I went once. But anyway, so those are places that you can post your auditions. Now, keep in mind that those places do have, because I mean, like we said, we started there, so therefore, the vast majority are amateurs. However, that doesn't mean that they aren't talented. So you can find some really good auditions there, and they actually now, at least Voice Acting Club does, and some other places have like a paid auditions.
Casting
form.
Call Club as well.
Casting Call
Yes.
Club, yeah. I never really understood it, but yeah.
I don't know. Now might be a good time to bring up. I actually have written an article directed towards game developers and indie devs about
The one on
no matter what
TikToks?
your budget is, if it's free to you want to cast like Troy Baker, like no, depending on your budget, where to go to find voice actors, and it gives you a bunch of resources and links, and it'll tell you kind of like the price range to expect on each, and it also has links to listen to sample demos from each category, so you can kind of judge for yourself the quality and the pricing and determine kind of like where you want to go from there. So I think Josh has that link. If he wants
That was the one from Take Source, right?
No, that one is on my
Never
website.
mind that link in the chat. I'm stupid.
You had one job.
I've heard that so many times today.
That's okay.
Don't start with me.
Can never have too many.
There's the other link. You can look at them both. I mean, I'm just...
Yeah,
whatever.
the other one is basically kind of what we're talking about now. It's like how to cast and direct your voice actors for your game.
Right.
So both are relevant.
So, probably, I mean, casting for your character is one thing, but then there's the directing. Once you actually cast, the directing side, and I think as voice actors, that's probably where we have more opinions, because we've likely all worked with good directors and not so good directors. We won't say it because we're professionals, but it's a fact of life. So what can potential directors do when they're directing for their game to not be obnoxious?
I would actually say like practice on somebody else first. I don't know, just to kind of like,
It's
because
like kissing.
I feel like I've definitely been in sessions where it was their very, very first time directing anything ever. And
Yep.
so it's just kind of like, and some hands they're like, oh, I don't have to do anything. You're just doing it. And like, it's perfect. It's great. Other times it's like it's kind of like the person who's got the job that feels like they have to do something even if they don't have to. And then it's
Right. They're afraid that they're in not doing anything, that they're not actually doing the job they're paid to do.
correct.
Exactly.
And so they just end up kind of rambling for 10 minutes sometimes for like a line of dialogue. Like, let me set all this up. I'm like, I got it. It's cool.
I don't need to know what happens 4 pages of dialogue later. Come on, let's work with right now.
right.
I think one of the biggest things, and I watched, I think Kimlin, who wasn't able to come on this, but Kimlin Tran, if you know her, who was in Skullgirls and Dust, Elysian Trail. She posted one time on Facebook about like a recording session that just was like went horribly wrong from the directing standpoint, and I think, and it was basically the people directing who were just coming out with like completely unreasonable, like little tweaks that they were, and I understand like wanting perfection. I mean, it's your baby, it's your project. I understand that, but you got to understand like there's a limit to the human voice, first of all. And if it's you cast this person in the first place for whatever reason, you felt that it matched your project, but once you get them in there and you've had them reread the line 50 times, don't at a certain point they've done it like however many different inflections. I think you maybe just cast the wrong person, or you're a little bit crazy. I don't know.
No, and to add to that too, you have to be really careful. Like, we actors can be sensitive folk, and then like we start thinking we're doing a bad job, and all of a sudden we're in our head and we lose our confidence, and now we can't do anything good because we're just like we just think we suck.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. We tend to be creative people tend to be a little bit more sensitive, and and it's weird because we have to handle rejection a lot.
Yeah.
So when you finally get cast and it's still not good enough, it kind of hurts. You just want to do what's best for the project. So another thing is when you're casting, because you mentioned, it just made me think of it. You mentioned like first-time directors. A lot of times they're also first-time casting anything as well, and especially indie devs because they don't have a lot of money. They go in looking for the cheapest or free. And you can find talented people for free. I mean, and I won't speak for everyone, but I am understanding of, depending on the situation. I get paid for certain I won't go into details, but I get paid for certain projects. But I have done other projects for free, like Spime. I will say that I didn't get paid for Spime, but that is also a free game that he put out on GameRoll. He's not making any profit off of that. It's a cool project, and I've followed Suits and Nukes for a long time, so I decided to help out. But understand that, generally speaking, if you don't want to pay that much, you're going to get what you paid for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And particularly on places like, it's kind of rough on voices.com and places like that where people who, because we can't undervalue our work, and we get undercut a lot by people who do, or maybe just aren't that good for whatever reason, and so they get the job, but then you're going to get a crappy voiceover, generally speaking. So,
and it can be more expensive in the long run, because then you've spent all this time and money on this person, but then you end up having to recast. Right. And then it's just like... Exactly.
So now you've got to pay a whole nother person, and you're going to have to pay the higher rate you should have just paid in the first place.
Exactly.
So, I mean, forgive me because my brain's a little fried, and I'm trying to, like, work my words through my head.
It's all good.
So, you're working to cast these people and with a limited budget. So what would you guys say is the best way to negotiate? Because I would, again, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure that we're all willing to negotiate a price based on your situation. What would be the best way to approach that from their point of view, would you say?
From their point, just notice or just recognize that you can negotiate. I've quoted people sometimes, and then I just never hear from them again. It's just like, you can't email me back and say that it's too much, or you can work with me. Like, even if I do mention, like, if it, let me know if this works for you, but it'll be crickets sort of thing. I'm like, but
yeah.
Yep.
So just recognize that you can negotiate.
We can do a payment plan, maybe.
Right. Even,
royalties.
We do financing.
A lot of times too, you can kind of. I lost my train of thought. I'm so hot right now. Sorry. So when directing someone's character for a game, what are the best practices? I mean, I know I mentioned about being annoying and obnoxious as a director, but what are the best practices to treat the voice actor right, and then also to get the best takes out of the person, would you say?
I'm actually kind of interested. I saw that when you first asked that question, that Patrick, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but did you have something to say about that?
I did for getting started as a director, but then I also have two tactics that I work with actors when doing like projects, because there was a sci-fi game I had to direct for. It's basically how I executed it is I let them do 3 takes on their own, just sort of dry run, see if there's anything good. If I don't feel what I'm feeling, we actually do back and forth between their character and whatever character they're interacting with, just so I can get a true natural response out of them. Because I noticed if they actually have a character that's like yelling at them or being happy with them, they'll actually respond naturally to how they're supposed to. And those actually end up being the best takes that I get out of that actor.
Yeah, they'll return that emotion and that energy.
Acting is reacting.
Yes.
Ooh. I've never heard this before. It's all clear now.
It's like, I did it. I understand.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to bring up is if you're first time directing, I cannot stress this enough. Do like shadow programs. Like if you're nearby a studio that does directing or anything like that, see if you can just shadow one of the directors that day, just so you see how everybody else does it. Because I shadowed at least 3 people before I decided this is how I'm going to direct, because this seems to be the most effective.
Nice.
Yeah, solid advice.
Okay.
I would also recommend that a director should understand that all actors are different, and that you could say to one actor like, all right, I just need like a little bit more energy, but like maybe they're having a really hard time getting to that point, so they might need to hear, give me a lot more energy. You just have to kind of like work with your actor and like understand what phrases and what kind of objectives are gonna like work for them, because it's not going to be the same for everybody. So understand that you can't just have like a go-to like set of words or things like that. You kind of have to like mess around a little bit during the session.
I've also noticed some actors will respond to the numbers game, where like if like all the emotional scales are on a 1 to 10, so it's like, all right, I want you to be mad, but I want it to be like a 6. So it's like grit your teeth angry, but not yelling at the person angry.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
I like actually kind of like that personally, like grit your teeth angry, the description of it, as opposed to yelling angry. I think I like that better than the numbers.
Karen angry, like, I swear to God, if you do this to me,
I'm gonna fucking strangle you. Yeah. So how about some people have a character in mind, but maybe don't have the voice in mind. You know what I mean? They have the characteristics of the narrative behind them, like their personality, but they don't have the actual sound in their head. What's a good way to find that voice, you know, through casting and directing? If that makes sense.
So somebody who understands that the character exists, but it has to be a specific tone that they're looking for.
Like say a lot of times you see on auditions where they're like, this is the person, this is what they're like, but it can be like any accent that speaks English, and it can be like high to low. You know what I mean?
They'll be very vague.
Yeah, they don't know what they want.
That means they have no idea what they want. They're just going to have to go through a million different auditions, and when they finally get one, they're going to go, that's it.
Yeah.
Don't lose it.
Generally,
they have the time, I guess. I mean, if you're on a
personally, I like that more, just because you find an actor who could truly understand the character, get behind that microphone, and actually convince me that this character now officially exists. And whether they're high or low, that's fine by me. That all just comes down to like the final client, where they're like, "Is this good? Do you like this? Because I like it. Can we keep it?"
on the other, and that, I mean, a lot of times people like will contact you guys directly because they know you from various games or animations or something like that, and they can kind of do that in that case because they found you specifically, and then they can work with you like that. But if someone's working, this is just my opinion, if someone's working for, I just was brought cake, thank you. If someone's
share.
Looking for like a mass audition, I actually like it a lot better when it's more narrow, because it increases my chance of being cast if I know what they want. Whereas, because I felt like there's been plenty of times where I nailed that audition, and then I don't get it, and I hear in the end project or somehow I hear what they actually chose, and I'm like, well, that was really good too, but that's completely the opposite of what I did. Like, if I'd known that, you know.
Yes. Sometimes. So
I think we've all been there at least once.
Yes. That's
Yeah.
what they went with. Well, I would.
The person
Totally.
afterward also asked me, this was my first time, casting or directing, and I thought, oh, really? Okay, I probably could have guessed that. But I didn't say that to them. But they asked me for feedback. How did I do? And I was like, do I be honest?
I'm gonna be honest. That sounds like that's like
be
having
honest,
sex
I
with
was
someone and then be like,
lost.
"How'd I do?" You know.
I didn't know what you were asking.
On a scale of
That's
1
the
to 10, where do you
problem.
rate me?
That's the problem where I hear feedback. So I'm like, all right, cool. Truth filter's on. Let's go.
Yeah.
Well,
But
that's,
after I said that, they were like, they never talked to me again after I told them. So I feel like, was
People
I
get
too
butthurt so
honest?
easily.
I tried to be as, gentle and clear and constructive. Like, just give them, instead of saying you were bad, saying here's how you could have done better. Like, I didn't
Right.
try to
Right.
say,
The criticism
Constructive
sandwich.
feedback. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
For those in the stream who are trying to get some clarity here that are listening in, it's this weird phenomenon where a client or director will write down the description of the character and the tone that they want, but then they cast almost like the complete opposite.
Yes.
But that's kind of also just a reality too of the business and the industry.
sometimes
is
they
that
might just change their mind, right? Like,
Yeah, or I mean, like, a lot of time agents, they'll send what the client is looking for and asking for, and then they'll send them a couple wild cards that are like not. And a lot of the times, the director will end up going with the wild card because it's different. It's like something new and refreshing to them, and it's just a different take on the character that they hadn't considered before, but that they like, and so it's just kind of like this. Yeah, it just happens.
And they've heard this same take from these similar voices all this time, and then there's this fresh one that came in, and it's like, hey, wait, I like that better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So another thing that they can think about is I keep getting distracted. Another thing they can think about is what to expect when going into an audition. Like there's generally a procedure, right, when you walk into like a booth, and usually when you're talking to an indie dev, it's probably over Skype. First of all, let me just forewarn you that Skype compresses the shit out of audio, so don't expect crisp, clear audio when you're hearing it live. I had someone once direct me live, and were like, "Why does it sound like it doesn't sound like?" They were basically accusing me of like lying on my dating profile or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So
this doesn't sound like high quality microphone.
yeah,
What is going on?
Right.
it sounds much better when
Tricked
with the
me.
raw file. But you've probably been directed over Skype or some digital platform. Is there like a procedure that they should expect, or is it different between all of you, as far as like starring the takes, the recording through to the end?
I know with me, when I get get the direction via Skype, I like to also have my recording already going, and I say, okay, let's do a couple of takes first. I'm going to send you that and make sure it's the good quality that you want, and then we'll roll with the rest of it.
Put us on Skype.
So I'll do that, right. So that's what I like to do. That's kind of the procedure I prefer.
Okay. How about anyone else? Does anyone else have like a certain way of doing things that maybe a first-time director should expect?
For me, like, it's kind of what they want. Sometimes they want me to clean it up and take out our conversations between, edit it, maybe equalize it, normalize it, send it off. Other times they're like, don't touch it, just send it. I'm like,
Right.
all right, cool.
We'll take care of it.
It's fine with me.
Yeah. Oh, at the end of the day, if they're paying me, it's what they want. So.
Yeah.
Oh, that's you reminded me actually, Jerry, about that, about giving critiques and stuff like that. I don't know how often I've seen scripts, whether it be a translation issue or just someone who is just terrible grammatically. But please,
That translation.
because what's going to
Yeah.
happen a lot of times, because we're not going to say anything to you, most likely.
I will.
Well, Jerry,
sometimes
I mean, I
do.
guess
I'm
it
like,
depends
I
on the
can't
client.
say this.
I don't
this
give a
is
damn.
not a
I'm going to
support
come
how
right in.
they
It's like, no,
wrote it
I'm
down.
sorry. No, this is the wrong tone for that. Hold on.
What I
let's
might
try
do,
this.
what I might do instead of calling them out, I'll probably like record it the right way, and just see if they say anything.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I want it this way. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I give them both. Like, here's what
Yeah.
you wanted. Here's what I think you should have.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
But I don't
please-
say that. I just give them both,
clean it
and they'll
up.
probably be like, "Oh, this take is better. I don't know why."
I've had clients come back and be like, "That was our mistake, and you fixed it for us. Thank you."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a lot of devs in here from like Germany and Europe and stuff like that. So most of them, from talking to them previously, they all speak pretty good English.
Mhm.
Better than me apparently. But there's always some translation issues when you're putting it on script.
Mhm.
So just, and I was mentioning like you guys call them, maybe tell them, and I was taught, when I first started like going to workshops and stuff like that, I was taught like they're your client, you do what they want. If it sounds dumb, that's on them. So that's why I don't
Yeah.
tell them.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
For me, if it's like if it's with like an indie person and I know it's like their first thing, I'm gonna help them out. If it's like a big paying client or whatever, like, all right, you got to pay me to proofread and like.
Yeah. Good point there.
Very good point.
Well, with some of the devs that I have, a lot of them are like based in China or Korea, so like they don't have like a really good direct translation for what the original text was. So they'll send it to me, and like I'll go to my middleman. I'm like, "Is that what it's actually supposed to say?" And they're like, "Yes, just read it that way because that's how they want it." I'm like, "Okay."
All
Right then.
Whatever.
It reads like the instructions on chopsticks, but okay.
It was an animation, not a game, but there's somebody who was in the Newgrounds community, and the English was not their first language. So, but instead of just saying, "Hey, this script kind of looks funny," not me, but the person I was they actually recorded everything exactly how they wanted, and you watch the cartoon and you think, "Is this a joke?"
It kind of
Everything
sucks.
just sounds weird.
I guess it kind of sucks too if you don't say something and they accept and they realize that they don't realize that it sounds stupid.
Yeah.
And then it kind of like people hear that and are like, I don't want that for my commercial. Are you afraid like it'll hurt
Yeah.
your reputation?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's also your product too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
It's a good point. I
Yeah,
guess
you
it's a like play it by ear situation as far as critiquing goes. Speaking of critiquing, you mentioned like how people get butthurt when you critique them. Are there tips that you can
I
give?
didn't use those words.
I did.
Okay, good.
Are there tips that you can give potential directors of games? Not that I guess it makes a difference. That about being more receptive of critiques, like understanding, like from even though they're the ones hiring you, like understand that you guys are the ones that have been doing this a while.
Well, just know,
Maybe-
first of all, that we're not actually trying to be personal here. We're not trying to hurt your feelings. We're actually trying to help you, because the better you are, the better result you're going to get out of me and future actors. So that's the best thing we can do is, just accept it. Realize we're not attacking you personally. It's natural to get a little defensive, and you're basically telling me something I don't want to hear about myself. But you need to understand that we're trying to help you too.
Okay.
Yep. It's one of those you never grow with a gratuitous amount of positive reinforcement, and same flip side, you can't grow with a gratuitous amount of negative reinforcement.
Right.
So you got to find that good middleman where it's like, I liked how you did this, but you could also work on this. A little
Yes,
bit more.
like we said, the
Right, it's
critique
the critique
sandwich.
sandwich.
It's a sandwich.
I like how you did this. Do this better.
Yeah.
This was
Like-
good though.
Like she said,
Salty and
down there.
sweet. Yeah. So we got about 15 more minutes. If anyone in chat has questions, please feel free. But
Oh, Q&A time.
are there Q&A? But in the meantime, so we're not just sitting here looking at each other. What can you name? Maybe like your worst and best experience being directed, particularly in games. Oh, actually, here's a question I remembered. Games are a little bit different from animations a lot of times because there's like a lot of screaming, probably more in in games than there would be in animation. The fighting sounds, getting hit, that sort of stuff. It's kind of rough on your voice.
Effort noises.
Yeah, effort noises. There you go. What are some of the best ways to direct those? And also, as a side note, how to help your voice actor not destroy themselves.
Leave it for the end.
Yes, for the very end.
Yeah.
If you can make it a separate day, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
That's even better. Because guaranteed, we're going to put everything into it, and our throat's going to be sore for the next day or so.
Can you do a retake of this? No.
No.
Yeah. Also, if you have like a lot of it, let us know ahead of time. Like as soon as you can give us that information, because then we might reschedule things. Like, oh, I'm gonna be doing an hour straight of screaming. I might not want to do it right before my like smooth, sexy like makeup commercial or whatever.
Right. Let me pencil you in a different day.
Exactly.
That'd be funny to do that after we're like, please put on this makeup, blah blah blah.
Maybe even include that in the audition when you send it out for people, so they
Yeah.
know. Oh, I don't live in an area where I can be screaming. They'll call the cops. You're like,
Yeah.
I'm actually worried about that constantly here. I'm not gonna lie.
I was signed on my door. It's like I'm
I'm not
seriously
dying.
getting
It's okay.
the first.
But you really thought I was, right? Okay.
The first recordings I did for Tether, it was like I before they did a rewrite. The first recordings I did for Tether had a lot of screaming and death of me being killed, and I was legitimately worried that I was going to get like SWAT breaking down my door because they thought that murder was happening. And actually the first time that he actually asked me to get a to do retakes because I was so like I don't know if I should be that loud, so I was kind of doing that indoor scream, not like this, but you know what I mean. Like I was just taking it down a little bit.
Yeah.
And in my head, I was like, oh, that's loud. But then when I reheard it after he asked for retakes, I was like, oh shit. Luckily, no one ended up calling after I did the retakes, but yeah. Just be aware of the situations that, especially when you're working like within the indie community instead of Hollywood or something like that.
Right.
Talk to your neighbors too. I've told my neighbors like I voice act, I scream. I don't scream after quiet hours, so only call the cops if you hear screaming then.
Yes.
Which would suck if you're getting murdered in the middle of the day. But you know, risks of the occupation.
Scream and then shortly after yell, "I'm okay."
Yeah.
I'm okay. After every line.
Questions from the chat. What is one thing that a director can do that throws up a red flag, basically saying how hard it will be to work with them, like right away?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Piper.
They cast you as every female in the game.
I have
Or
not
sorry, I
experienced
mean
that.
like if you're a female. I mean, you
I was
know.
gonna say they cast Jerry as every female in every game.
That's also kind of a bad sign if you have a deep, timbre, manly voice and they cast you as every girl in the game. That's also a red flag. But no, if they are asking you to do 5 voices that are very similar, they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Did you have?
Do you know
one
what I
too,
mean? Do you know what I'm saying?
I know.
Like
what
we'll
you're
have
saying.
you do these 2 characters because they sound alike. What?
Why
Okay.
do they sound
Are
alike?
they in the same
Why do
scene
they
with
sound
each
alike?
other? Because that could be a problem.
Maybe
Oh
they're
yeah, and
twins.
am I getting paid for each character or is this
Oh.
just
That's
one?
Keep
that
in
is a
mind.
different rate, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, well, then I need to be paid for 2 characters, okay?
Actually, keep in mind too. Speaking of getting paid, because you're likely, if you want good quality voice actors, you're likely going to be paying for them. Understand that there are rates, depending on union, non-union, that sort of stuff. But there are rates if you're going to have them do more than one character. a lot of times, like what I'll do is depending on the amount of lines too. But I'll say up to 3 characters depending on the amount of lines. Like if they're like some side characters or something like that. And then every character after that's going to be an additional like $7,500 depending on who I'm talking to. So keep in mind when you're casting in your budget. Did you have a story too, Tamara?
Oh, about
red flags?
Red flags? Mine is like when somebody uses the words, it's only 3 lines or something like that. And I need it right away. I need it in 24 hours and it's only 3 lines. I'm like,
and it should only take you this amount of time.
Yeah. That's for
Will
me.
they decide how long it's going to take you?
Well, it's just talking. It's not that hard.
That's when you direct them to Fiverr.
Right.
These lines are only 2 seconds long each, so I'm thinking you'll probably only need to be in the booth like 15 seconds.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a story there, kid.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, please.
Or the other big red flag you'll find, I call them the one-take guys, where it's you go in and you only did 1 take on the line. They're like, all right, good, we're moving on. Like, are you sure?
I don't even think that was good.
It's like I was just dry reading. Are you sure you don't want me to try it again? Maybe with a little more feeling?
I didn't even know that was being recorded.
They took, yeah. I see what
At
you're
that
saying.
point, it's just kind of like, all right, they're gonna put in whatever I give.
Yeah.
I'll tell them what I want them to put in then, because people are gonna be hearing me. I want it to be my good stuff.
Right. It's like, no, let's not use that one. Let's try that again.
Yeah.
Or even worse, the audition, and they use that for the final product. If it was only like 3 lines, like, don't do this to me, Jim.
Ultimate Chicken in chat says, I do games programming and voice acting both, but I always have trouble adjusting my prices based on the customer, how much to charge indie devs, etc. Any tips?
That's always hard.
Yeah, that is a very difficult question, and it's very subjective too, because we all have a different value for our own voices. Each person, right? It is. It depends on how big the project's going to be. Again, how many characters we're going to be doing, how many lines it is. Are we a main character versus a side character? It's too much to go over there, and everybody's going to have a different rate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Personally, I like to go by an hourly rate. It's just easier for me.
Yes.
I know that if I'm stepping into the booth, I'm getting that amount. Like, even if it's like just 5 lines or whatever.
Although
I have a minimum hourly rate as well.
That said, I think similar to like audiobooks, there's sometimes people have like those games are like graphic novels where you're reading a lot basically. Mm-hmm. If it's a lot of words, you could technically potentially do it per word. But it's probably going to be a lot of words if you do that. But just to keep that in mind if someone's doing that sort of thing.
Sometimes I see rates like that when I was first starting out and I was looking stuff up. Man, people were saying stuff like, "Oh yeah, blah 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 per word," or even people were coming to me saying, "I'm going to charge you blah 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 per word." But like then when I was talking to mentors and stuff, they were talking about hourly rates. And so I was really, it could be really confusing on both ends when you're new to it. Yeah. But like what everyone else is saying, you kind of just gauge it based on the content and the workload.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There are some good resources for because I saw your message in chat. There are some good resources for rates as a voice actor and for directors looking out there to kind of gauge what you might be looking at. Mm-hmm. Granted, like for instance, if you go to Edge Studios website, they have a rate card, and they do have kind of a wide, like it goes from like $75 to like $300 an hour, but it really depends. It really depends on who you're contacting. You know, again, like if you're a Troy Baker, I mean, he's also unionized, but he's going to be on the upper end because he's fucking Troy Baker. Yeah, you know, he's in every goddamn AAA game there is. Leaving the rest of us out in the dirt.
If it ain't him, it's Nolan North.
Nolan North, I was about to say that. We're gonna have
and different websites too have different rate guides. Like Voices.com has a rate guide. Edge Studio has a rate guide. Yep. I think Voice 123 has a rate guide. Global Voice Acting Academy has a rate guide. It's just they all look different too. So
I didn't think about that. You're so smart. Yeah. You're so resourceful. My goodness. I'm learning from you.
We all learn something.
Glad
today.
I could help.
The more you know.
The more you know.
Yeah.
There it is.
Holly Gaborin in chat. If so, then how do you convert from words to hours? Before hiring, we'll need to be able to do that to be able to budget. Unless you're Double Fine or something and just flush money down the toilet for fun.
Oh.
If you're basing like an hourly rate off of how many words or whatever like that, Edge Studio also has a words to time calculator that's kind of handy. But
Yep.
that can also be like kind of like wishy-washy. Like, and it also depends if you're doing like a live directed session. Like if maybe the actor's taking a little bit more work and like 1,000 line or 1,000 words is going to take the full hour.
Mhm.
Other actor might be able to get through like 7,000 words in an
Yeah.
hour. It's kind of a crapshoot.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of variables involved, and so don't be daunted by the fact that you don't know what you're doing, because I mean it's
Nobody
it's-
does.
Nobody does. It's just we just throw ourselves out there, and you can too. Join us. So
Okay.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking a little bit about how it's really good. Sometimes there's somebody in the middle. The people who are directing and who have the idea what they want for the character are over here, when the other guy is over here, and they're trying to run everything. And so then the voice actors like has questions. Well, do they need it read fast? Do they need it like, are these slow? Are these when this note right here about be like you're dying but be cute, like what does that mean? And then but then they're like, oh, I can't, they're busy right now, and so then nobody's gonna get what they want. So
Yeah.
you got to make sure everybody's communicating. There
Yeah.
can't be,
Communication is key.
you can't be in the dark wondering what am I doing,
Yeah.
especially if it's going on a professional platform and going out to tons of people. You want to make sure,
Yeah.
You did mention middlemen though, and sometimes it might be a good idea if you have the extra cash to go, because Pat, what's the agency that you're involved with called?
Me?
Something Star, I think, or
Oh, Shining Star.
yeah. Maybe go through something like that where someone who knows how to direct, you give them your notes, and someone who knows how to direct can direct.
Oh, can you
the-
translate this for me? What does this mean?
Right, something like that. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any tips for non-live directing? I only have experience doing live directing for games and theater, so like instructions ahead of time.
Give me the whole
so, like,
script.
Right. Give me the
Give me-
whole thing so I can
give me
see what
both
I'm working
characters.
with here.
Yeah.
I need to
It's-
know
What am I
who I'm
writing?
talking
Oh
to
my
and what they're saying.
That's
Yeah.
funny. Yeah,
I think most important for me is context.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, because I mean, like you're saying,
Context is important.
whole script, so the other characters as well as like not just the direction for the voice acting, but the direction for what's happening in the scene.
Exactly. Am I at a cafe? Am I on a battlefield?
Yeah.
Is
Right.
it-
Obviously, my delivery is going to be a little bit different depending on where I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, is this guy yelling at me? How far away is he from me? And how far away do I need to yell at
yeah.
him?
So I think that's the last of the questions in chat, and that is we are at 6:45. So last thing, go ahead I'll start with Jerry and go Jerry, Tamara, sorry, Patrick, and Piper.
Okay.
Let everyone know where they can find you in case they want to hire your ass.
Oh.
Okay. Well, I'm available on Twitter. Just hit me up there at Mr. Bipolar Jerry. I'm always available there. I'm also on Newgrounds or anywhere else. You could find me as Jerry K. Jones on Voices. Or, you could always just hit me up on Facebook. I'm there as well, Jerry Kyle Jones. Very easy to get a hold of.
Tamara.
Oh, yep. Same for me. Basically, put in my name on like Twitter, Facebook, Google, Tamara Ryan, VO helps. And I've got my website, so you can listen to all my demos and stuff through there. I've got a YouTube channel.
Check out those
Tamara
articles too, by the way, in the chat.
Yes.
I'll list them again once we're done here. And how about you, Pat?
You can find me most actively on Twitter right now at Pat M. Seymour VA, but you can also do the same deal as Tamara. You can just Google my name either as Patrick M. Seymour or PM Seymour. You'll find me.
Like
and then
35,000 followers, dude. Just,
Yeah.
God damn.
Yeah.
The power.
Thank you. But yeah, you can also find me on YouTube, Seymour VAA, but you can also just hit up my email at patrickseymourva@yahoo.com. I will respond to that one probably the fastest.
Piper.
Yes. Who whispered?
Don't
That was
scream.
so covert. Okay.
That was
Yes.
me.
You can. I have my website, but it's really. Please don't look at it right now. It's under construction. No. My Twitter. That's what I'm most. That's where I'm most active right now. All of my info is right there in my bio. How you can contact me, my email, and I'm also on Twitch. But that's not. Please don't contact me for work through Twitch. But if you want to see how I handle myself, if you're gonna stalk me for a bit before you decide you want to work with me, that's a good way to do it.
Tips from Piper. Stalk your voice actor for hiring.
Yes.
Always stalk them first. Yes.
Yes. Always stalk
There's
them
one
first.
better way to see your actor's personality than them getting angry at video games.
But yeah, my Twitter is just my name, Piper Faye.
Good.
I
It used
don't
to be
know if I
like
said that.
Fei or something, right? You changed it?
My Twitch is Faye Faye.
Oh. that's maybe
My
right.
Twitter is Piper Faye. I finally got that name.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Myself, you probably know me if you've been watching this for a while. It's at Josh and Ya on Twitter. My website is musservo.weebly because I changed it to Weebly from something else that sucked. Musservo.weebly.com, which has demos, and you probably find demos on everyone else's stuff as well, or contact them.
Oh yeah.
Email is musservo at gmail.com for voiceover related stuff, but you could probably email me at any email that you might know for me, whatever. So thank you guys so much for joining me on this panel and giving your expertise and experience and anecdotes to all this stuff. To this, I can't think, man, I'm burnt.
You're
Thanks
doing a
for
good
having
job.
us, Josh.
You've been doing this all day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yesterday and
What
tomorrow.
he's trying to say is thank you guys so much for the time and energy that you have put forward into helping make IRX what it is this year. And definitely, I enjoyed, I'll admit, I used this panel because Josh was here. I used it to some errands and eat. But thank you guys so much. Especially at the end where I had my headphones back on and could hear it. It wasn't just me. People in chat are saying, thanks. It was a great session.
By the way, Rev is that guy who would be like, do a voice. I'm just saying.
I think
He
the
did
last
that to
time I
Jerry.
talked to y'all, that's what he did. Yeah.
We did that to Jerry when you were on the podcast.
Yeah.
That thing that you're in.
Do a SpongeBob
Well, thank you so
voice.
much for having us on. Thank you for putting it
this is awesome.
together.
Oh,
Absolutely.
no,
This has been fun.
Yeah.
you make me blush. So, all right, guys. Feel free to stick around on IRX if you'd like to watch. Also, feel free to keep in contact with me. It's always cool to, just like indie games, voice actors also have to stick together. It's a tough industry, but
Yes.
it's definitely a passion, like that kind of job where you know what, you do it because you love it. So, thank you guys, and I will kick you out of Skype now.
All right.
All
Bye.
right.
Thank you.
Bye everyone. I'll miss you.
Bye, and thank you again.